In the last video, we organized all of these cells by number, and we configure them to where each pack has between 16,100 and 16,400 milliamp hours in each pack. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cells, or packs of cells. And we can connect them into here, these 3D printed housings that I made. Each of these 8 wide rows will be in parallel. They'll be linked in series to the vertical rows. For instance, we'll have these ones going like this way, then we'll have some other ones going like this way, and they'll alternate like that, so the power can pass through them. Now, on each one, we will have a bar, or not bar, but a wire soldered across here, and then a fuse going to the other one. And that will allow a really nice addition of safety to it. And the fuses I'm using are 4 amp pico fuses. And these are those pico fuses. They're quite small, and they're rated for 4 amps. I haven't actually spent the time testing them, but you know what? We can find out. Got 120 of them. They're like 30 bucks for all this. Not too bad. So I say let's first start off by pressing these into there in rows so that we can then solder them up. Oh boy, look at that. That right there is 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28 volts at 16 amp hours. Love that. And looks like it all fit in really nicely too. On to the next row. So here we have the cells inside of one cell holder. Looks really nice. They're all oriented exactly how I want them. Unfortunately, by putting them in there, they kind of spread out a little bit, so that means it'll be very difficult to pop the other cap onto the other side. But when I do, it should be on there almost permanently, which is good if I get it right, but if I fuck it up, well, that's bad. There we go. That was actually a lot easier than I expected. And these lithium cells are pretty hardy. So now the question is, can I hook these together? I think yes, because I went through all the trouble to 3D print these housings, and I'll probably still end up using duct tape to hold it together as one big block like that. And then we have to see, can I still solder onto here, even with this plastic over it? You know, it really wouldn't feel like one of my batteries unless it was partially built up of duct tape. I realized I was missing a few parts, so I ran out to Fry's Electronics and got some cables. These will be the balance leads. I'm going to switch my system over to a 25-pin D-sub connector instead of a 9-pin. But that means I don't feel like rewiring the connectors inside my tricycle already, so I'm going to make an adapter to adapt the 2 9-pin D-sub connectors that I have in there to one 25-pin D-sub connector. Also got like a flux pin and some wire and whatnot, because it's kind of needing some wire. I didn't feel like using the crappy wire I have laying around. I think the first thing I should do is I should heat up the soldering iron slightly and try to weld the plastic bits together right here, because if I don't, they're going to be able to move around, and I can't have that moving around that much. I would like to have them at least slightly hooked together, and then any soldering bits I put across won't be going under as much stress. I think that turned out pretty nicely. It's a nice little thin weld. Actually, you know, that kind of went down pretty deep. I like that. It may end up breaking sometime, but oh well. I'll try to make the housing around this thing better anyway. But I picked up some solid core wire. I'll strip some of the covering off that, and that can be what goes across it. It's getting pretty late, and I'm getting pretty tired. But this is the general idea. Long wire going over the negative side, then fuses going over to the positive. When I get to this one, I'll most likely make sure that the wires are really long on the fuses. Unlike these, because if this cracked right down the middle, these fuses would be having a lot of strain on them and they'd probably snap off or break in the middle or something like that. But over here, there's a much better chance of it cracking down the middle. So if I make the fuses wires so they have extra length on them, so they can just like move around just a little bit, then that'd probably be a good idea. On a side note, I've also noticed that the 3D print's developing some cracks. So I've been trying my best to heat it up and kind of mold the plastic back over the cracks, but I think there's just cracks are kind of inevitable with this. But still, it's far better than my previous design of just wrapping everything in duct tape until it stops moving. Okay, so now I've run into an issue. So we have, on this side, both of these rows are connected, so this would be positive and this would be negative. So across here will be 8 volts. Now the question is, should I add pico fuses to the end one? Because adding the pico fuses relies on, like, for instance, having a bar across here and having them go across. Well, this one, there's no bar to have them go across too. So, I think for at least the 2 end ones, I might just add ones like that. Not really sure though. But that would mean that there'd still be fuses on all the middle ones. That'd be still a lot of fuses. I kind of like that idea. It makes it simplified. I could possibly try to mount this copper on the side and have fuses going to it, but I don't know. That doesn't seem like it'd be as strong. So after 7 hours of monotonous soldering, which I do kind of enjoy. Oh wait, there's another crack there. There we go. Cracks keep popping up. But after 7 hours or so of soldering, I believe I have it all done. A fuse on almost every cell. Of course, besides the outer cells, because they are... It's kind of difficult to put a fuse on each one. Now comes the harder part. Adding the balance leads and making sure that the balance leads can connect up to my current battery system. So that means making an adapter to go from these 2 D-sub connectors, these 2 9-pin D-sub connectors, to one 25-pin D-sub connector. And I'm not really sure. I have a lot of parts. I'm not really sure what I'm going to use though. I got these pass-through cables. So the pass-through means that it has every pin. You know, most cables would only have the pins that you need for that specific task. Like a serial 9-pin extender would only have like 4 or 5 pins, but this has all 25 going to all 25. So I might take this out and cut it in half and use this cable. It's 6 feet long. I think I'll want to have the female side on the BMS and have this male side on the battery. So we'll cut it in half right there. like that. So here we have the cable cut in half with the wires stripped, and I remove all the extra wires that I don't need because I only need pins 1 through 14. Because this is a 13 cell pack, so I need 14 pins. And I also mapped up what all the wire colors correspond to, and I wrote them down in a text file. So now let's wire it up. Basically it's just going to go, one's going to go to ground, then 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 34, 40, 44, 48, and 52 volts. And that'll be like all through it. So it's now been a couple days, and I have the wiring all done on the battery. I have the balance leads connected up, going to a 25-pin D-sub connector. I've made an adapter to split the balance leads going from the BMS, so it can connect to the BMS, and it can connect to the battery pack, the first battery pack, and then also connect to the second battery pack. It should be all ready to go electrically. The only things I need to do is put the cover around this, put some plastic on here and duct tape it down to make like a nice foam cushion around it. And then I'm going to have to sync up the charge, because the battery in my electric tricycle is like 4 volts per cell now. These are all at 3.6 volts per cell. The wires on these balance leads are way too thin to be able to really like hold much power, maybe 400 milliamps of current. I accidentally shorted out some of the pins on here and burned up some of the wires right after I got done finishing it, but it didn't actually fry the wires because I broke the connection quickly enough. It just melted the plastic off of them, so I put some tape around them to keep them insulated, and I'll just leave them be. Now it'll be a better idea to sync these up and to connect both these battery packs up whenever the voltage is low as opposed to when it's high, because when the voltage is low on the battery packs, the cells will provide less amps. So let's say that this battery pack is 1/20th of a volt lower than the cells in my other battery pack. Well, if that 1/20th of a volt is at 4 volts, it'll pull a lot of amps. But if it's at like 3.6 volts, well, that battery pack will dip in voltage a lot and won't give hardly any amperage. So I think I'm going to go with on the lower end, and then I'll charge them. Oh, I just realized I also have to add the positive and negative leads. I can do that right now. So now we have two 14 gauge copper wires soldered up nice and strongly. Now it's time to protect the cells and the fuses. Up until now, at least the second and third battery pack I ever made, I used the cases that my laptop batteries came in for my first battery pack, and the cases actually are kind of nice. Well, now it's kind of become a thing where it's like, you know what, if I'm going to build a battery pack, I kind of got to use these cases, because look at that, the plastic fits perfectly. I like the drawing. So, yeah. And also, it reminds you that it's made from laptop battery packs. We'll just get some duct tape, start taping it down. Make sure it's tight. And there we go. I feel like this battery pack, due to how it's built up similar to all my other battery packs, that it fits so well with the theme of my other ones, of how they're produced. Because like these ones, it looks almost exactly the same as that one. That one's smaller though, and needs 2 of them. This battery by itself can run my tricycle just on its own, just maybe not as far. Although, you know what, I really don't know. When I last did a discharge test on this green battery pack in here, it was at 24 amp hours of capacity. But I've gone 1,800 miles on it so far, not counting about 300 miles out in Illinois, so like 2,100 miles on it. It's almost 2 years old, made from cells from 2007. So who knows, maybe this one, maybe that one really is closer to 16 amp hours and this one is comparable. But either way, I know for a fact this one's 16 amp hours, and with this one I can run just off this one maybe for a bit, and actually do a full discharge test on my older battery packs to see how they've fared. And I just now added the leads on the ends. I believe there's one more thing I have to do. Oh, also on a side note, now that I make battery packs a little more frequently, I make each battery pack lead a different length. That way, if I drop them, they will not connect at the bottom. That's always good to have. Just a nice little extra feature just by adding a little bit of length to the battery leads. What I may actually do right now is see about, disconnecting this battery pack and connecting it up to the BMS and trying to charge that like it's that other battery and getting it closer to this capacity, or maybe even getting it to 100% and then connecting them both whenever they are at exactly 100%. Okay, so we have the battery pack up here, we have the little adapter, and we have the balance leads for the BMS. Down here I've disconnected the main wires going to this battery pack, so it's just the BMS connected up to like the charging system or whatever. Now I'm going to grab the negative lead. Should make a spark. Only taking 50 milliamps. That looks like it's perfect. I left the motor on. There we go. The little LEDs up here and the little motor controller pulls 50 milliamps of current whenever it's on. So now I should be able to pop it and only do it once. So do it once. Yep, and it holds the charge. Cool. Now let's test it out. And now the battery's at pretty much a 0% charge. Oh, it does kind of light the green light. And that's running off just the new battery I made. So I'm quite happy with that. You know what? Those aren't bad results for a dead battery. Now we get the little balance lead thing. Take the 25 pin connector. We wait and listen for some smoke. Nothing, which is good. We don't want anything to happen. This one connects up to here. So total pack voltage should be about 47 volts since it's dead. 47.5 volts, good. And we have 3.7 volts, 7 volts, 11 volts, 14 volts, 18 volts, 22, 25 volts, 29, 33, 36, 40, 44, and 48. Kept getting mixed up by trying to figure out where to put the pins. But yeah, it looks good. Oh wait, I should make sure to check for another mistake. Is the polarity correct? So the polarity is correct on the leads on here. Connect this up. So I'd hate to connect it backwards. Polarity is correct. Let's reverse it and we should see the minus sign on the multimeter. I'm being extra sure because I just do not want to fuck up my daily driver. And we see the minus sign and it's connected up in reverse. So that should work. Now I will get this cable and connect it to the BMS. Let's hope there's no magic smoke. Here we have power. And let's try and charge. Looks like it's charging. I was going to say about doing this later whenever I got the bigger quick connectors, but it occurred to me these smaller ones that I bought, they're the biggest ones they had, because of course like the blue ones, they're made for thicker gauge wire and these ones have smaller holes in them. these holes still fit single wires pretty well. So that just means if I connect two wires together right here, then it should be fine. So I'll go ahead and make these adapters too. And there we go. Quite nice. Now, that should be all the electricals. I'm pretty sure. Tomorrow in the morning I may bundle this all together and actually start driving it with both batteries. If I do that, I'm going to wrap this in this blanket really nicely. So it'll have about a good inch of cushion all the way around. And then I'm going to put it inside a bag and like put a couple straps around that bag and then stuff the bag in here really tight so it doesn't like rattle around or anything like that. So I have the big new battery pack connected up. And I have one of the lead connected up. So really all that's connecting both batteries together are these two leads. When I short them out, 2 3/4 amps of power goes from this battery into that battery because they're equalizing. But there's only a difference of like 1.2 volts. I don't know how I feel about that. You know, I could connect it up, and theoretically it should split the amperage going through the balance leads quite a bit. But I think I'll just give it a shot. See, my real concern is these actual balance leads. They're so thin that I don't want to fry them. But there we go. Both battery packs are connected together. If I see smoke, I'll pull everything apart. And I don't see smoke. Here we have my Seek thermal camera. And as you can see, the battery itself isn't quite too warm. And down in the box, the only thing that's warm is the actual charger and anything that the warm air from the charger fan blew on. So everything is looking really good. Step away a bit. Yeah, look at that. No heat. Now I should put this all back together. Kind of stuff it all back underneath here. I'll be redesigning this someday in the future, so don't worry. And there we have it. We have the battery inside its little protective housing. With the blanket around it. I believe this can easily... Oh man, that's heavy. This can easily fit right on top of the other battery box. Look at that, nice and snug. Then I'll just connect this back up. Okay. And there we go. My tricycle now has 40 amp hours of capacity. Wow. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let it have a few days to balance the cells and to just equalize. I'm going to ride it around as a normal commuter vehicle for like a day or two. And then we'll charge it up nice and full and we'll take it up one of the mountains just to test it out. So I've been riding my electric tricycle for a few days now with both battery packs in parallel, and I have to say it's so wonderful. I've been going a lot longer without charging, so like I just charged now, whereas before usually I'd charge each time I parked. Now I just went 2 days without charging, and it didn't seem like it was losing any power. Because you see, before, whenever I would ride my tricycle, or my bicycle back in Illinois too, whenever I would accelerate more than a certain amount, the green light would turn off because the voltage of the batteries would dip. Well, now I can just, as long as the batteries are pretty much charged, I can accelerate really hard and the battery light doesn't get below green. So it stays above 48 volts. So that means it can provide a ton of power. I just now let it sit charging for a couple hours, and the battery is at 53.3 volts. It's kind of interesting because that means that each cell is at 4.1 volts. I'm thinking that maybe this BMS isn't as broken as I thought it was, because originally I thought that the BMS was bringing all the cells back up to their normal voltage, I'm thinking maybe this battery this BMS only brings them up to 4.1 volts instead of just random. Because I was really wondering, why does it always bring the cells back up to the weird, like, uneven, but consistently back up to what they unevenly were. And I'm thinking it's just that maybe this BMS takes months and months to balance a big battery like this. But either way, several months ago, the cells were out of whack. Now, the cells were almost all at like 3.98 volts whenever, almost exactly, like within 0.02 of a volt. So I'm thinking maybe this battery pack, this BMS, takes a long time to balance. And now it'll probably take even longer to balance with those thinner wires in here. But oh well. I say let's go for a little test spin up the Santa Cruz Mountains. Do the same ride that I did around, I think, March or so, back when I only had the main battery pack. And we can see what the voltage goes down to, because now it's at 53.3. Before I charged it with, well, I only had 12 cells in series, or 12 packs of cells in series. So that was like 52 volts, but I charged them all the way to 4.2 volts. I made sure to do any little maintenance I may need. I took the wheels and I aired them up to 60 psi. They're rated from 40 to 60. Usually I air them up to 45 to 50. But I decided, you know what, for this, I'm going to go up to 60 psi for these. And I also went through and replaced any of the spokes that were broken, because I'm still having some of the original spokes breaking on here. But the ones I'm putting in here, they're definitely being strong. So I'm thinking it's just going to be like a couple months of the first batch of spokes like breaking off, and then I'll slowly replace them. But I have some extra in case any break. It's not a big deal if any break, though. Well, I say let's go up the mountain and see how many volts the battery drops in order to get me up to the same point I rode to back in March or whatever. It's already almost 7 o'clock, so I don't know if I can make it up in there in time. But now that I have the second battery pack, I can just use more of the motor power. Before I was relying more on just pedaling power because I didn't want to overstress my batteries. But let's give it a go. Got a pedal now. This is a pretty steep hill. Oh, it's got it though. I'm not dipping below 16 miles an hour. I do have to say, California is pretty scenic. It's almost as scenic as Missouri. Well, at least the area around here that I've experienced. Right here. Oh man. Whoa. Still green light. But man, this is steep. Oh, finally. It's flattening off a little bit. These roads are freaking steep. I may actually pop my motor controller. It's getting too hot to touch, really. Motor itself, though? Oh yeah, it's getting pretty hot too. Let's check the batteries now. No heat. Slight warmth. I'm gonna back up in these people's driveway real quick, so I can get a head start, or a running start at least. Now let's go. Oh boy. I'm thinking maybe this motor controller gives less and less power as it gets hotter. There might be a possibility. I don't recognize any of this. Oh, no, never mind, I do. Yeah, I do. Okay, so I'm going the right way. That's good. If not, if I ever get lost, I just go downhill and I'll find my way out. That's pretty scary, though. Oh man, look at that. You can really get a feel for how ancient this forest is. Well, I'd consider it ancient at least. Just look how there's nothing on the ground. I'm not used to that back in Illinois, where there's always junk on the ground. Or maybe just that this land isn't very fertile. Who knows? I bet you'd have a better view of it if I'm in motion. Look at that. It's like a good 70-foot drop there. You can see the tops of the trees that are planted down there. And the road gets even narrower, I think. Seems pretty narrow here. Still green. And we've emerged from the forest. Look at that. We're getting near the top. This is so quick. And I think this is our spot. Man. Okay, let's do a heat test. That's very hot. Very, very hot. That's not as hot. It's probably best for the motor to get hotter. Not warm at all. A little warm. I think it's the wires that are getting warm. Okay. So the main issue now, oh yeah, is the wires. Yeah, that's getting pretty warm. So I'll probably upgrade the gauge of the wire. But the cells themselves don't seem to be having any issues. Oh yeah, it's cold on this side, so it's probably just the wires on this side that are warming it up. The mist is really beautiful, I think. Enough of that though. Let's see how the batteries did. So we've gone up over 2,000 feet and the batteries have gone down to 50.8 volts. Oh, what was that there? It looked almost like it went 50.9. Oh well. Either way, 50.8 volts divided by 13 is almost exactly 3.90 volts per cell. So they've still got quite a bit of power to go. I could probably do this trip twice and on one charge, you know. Oh, there it goes. 50.9 almost. Oh well, they didn't change it too much. But yeah, this battery is a huge improvement. Much better. Quite happy with it. I think this thing will have plenty of power whenever I get my trailer hooked up. I can't remember what version this is on. I think it's on like 1.5B, because 1.5 was whenever I added the crate, I think. And 1.5B was just me jokingly whenever I added those stupid little lights to the wheels. But if that is correct, that it is 1.5B, then now it is on 1.6. So I've finally upgraded my tricycle to version 1.6. I'm quite happy with it. Now, I better get back down before it gets too dark. That's not too bad. Only took me 45 minutes to get up here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. See ya!